Soviet Union, the kingdom of Satan. A world once imprisoned by atheism, a people bound by fear. For more than 70 years, communism has controlled Soviet society through mental and physical abuse. It has been a cruel, calculating system that sought to manipulate not only lives, but souls as well. In the protective womb of the church, there is new life. The seeds of hope are being sown, the scars of the past healed. There is freedom here to feel, to pray, to be human. Freedom to withdraw from the outside world, just long enough to find the strength to return to it. There is no way to completely describe the depth of persecution and suffering, no way to adequately understand it. One Ukrainian citizen summed it up best when describing the monument to Lenin. He said, "The Soviet system is a terrifying system, a system built on the backs of the dead." In the heart of Ukraine, where the soul of Mother Nature and the spirit of man are locked in a timeless courtship, a dark, ugly secret has surfaced.
Over there in the corner,
Так, викопали один труп,
we found one
не
corpse
повністю. Не було частини голови
with parts of the body missing, with the head missing,
і деяких
and some
частин
parts
тіла.
of
Деяких частин тіла, так.
some parts of the body.
Труп, який з розпиленою головою, викопаний був тут, в цьому місці.
The skull with
цьому місці.
with the sawed open skull was excavated in this spot.
Лінія комунікації проходить.
Utility pipes placed over human bones.
Високої
They didn't bother to move
третій
anything.
туди.
Does he have any idea how many corpses total there are out here, or an estimated
Люди
number?
бідні, саморобні.
Until now, they've excavated some 200.
A human nightmare come to life. The discovery of a mass grave behind an old KGB prison in Drohobych, Ukraine. Our cameras are the first to document evidence of this brutal massacre of human life. Piles and piles of human bones and remains have been collected. They weave a grisly tale of horror.
Ну, результати, які маються при дослідженні от такому поверхневому навіть.
It's obvious that some were shot, some were strangled, and found an adult who had a nail in their head.
As the excavations continue and more bodies are dug up, the shocking tales of brutality that have been buried alongside them are also beginning to resurface. Horrible stories about young people who were brutally killed because they refused to be traitors against their own people. The perfect teeth in these severed skulls are evidence of the alarming number of young victims.
39-м почалося від перших днів
People were arrested in large numbers for no crime or for the very smallest crime. Sometimes even children were put in here who had done absolutely nothing, but mainly to terrorize parents.
This 81-year-old man and his wife and children survived prison here and in Siberia. A KGB bullet remains lodged behind his ear.
People were so frightened that they didn't know what to say or if to say anything. They wouldn't even open their thoughts to their own brothers and sisters.
It was the threat of torture and a horrifying death that hung over their heads.
А тоді, значить, з цієї тюрми тут ще після цього, коли поверталися стрибки із
I was taken before a military tribunal, and in 3 minutes I was sentenced to death. I was placed into a death chamber, a room for prisoners who were sentenced to death. There was no windows, there was nothing in there with other prisoners. And I sat there just waiting to be shot to death.
But in a strange twist of fate, death never came. He was eventually released. For others, though, fate hasn't been so kind.
They arrested both my brother and sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law was condemned to 25 years at hard labor, and my brother never came out of this building. I came here and saw it, and I cried, and I said, well, what do these people do to our brothers and sisters? So, why do we have to suffer on our own native land for what we believe?
As the townspeople relive the ugly nightmare, they can't help but wonder why this had to happen. This banner cries out for revenge. Where are you, the murderers of my people? It was a horrible period. How did he get through it at that time?
He said, God is the one who gave me the strength.
To me, this is certainly the work of Satan. And as with every work of Satan, it is against the basic rights of the people, particularly those who have faith in God. And because they have faith in God, they also want the rights of their countrymen to be observed.
Once the forensic expert has examined the bones and attempted to identify them, there will be a proper burial. In the words of one man, they died as brothers and sisters. They should be buried as such. The reign of terror swept through the Soviet Union in the 1930s. Joseph Stalin emerged as a ruthless dictator who engaged in the systematic destruction of millions of people and hundreds of churches. Stalin forcibly merged the Ukrainian Catholic Church with the Russian Orthodox Church in 1946, crippling the institution but not the spirit. During the time of persecution, the faithful would often go deep into the forest at night to pray together and to hear the liturgy from an underground priest. And they knew full well their lives would be at risk.
Many times the authorities would call me and they would tell me, look, we know what you're doing. And if you continue to do so, we will rip your head off.
But despite the threats, the clandestine activities continued at outdoor chapels like this one.
I never hid the fact that I was a priest. I was arrested initially as a priest, and later I wished nonetheless to remain true to my faith and to serve my people. We, of course, avoided great gatherings and gathered in small groups so as not to bring attention upon ourselves.
Archbishop Sterniuk lived in extreme poverty in this 14-square-meter room for 36 years. He was consecrated a bishop there in 1964.
The situation of the underground has had its positive aspects. As we all know, in the first century, the church underwent suffering and persecution, and from the suffering and persecution came certain strength, a strength to be able to overcome difficulties and remain strong in the faith.
But the communists did everything in their power to break the faith, brainwashing school children with atheistic principles and applying peer pressure.
They tried to force the communist ideology on us in the very first years in the school. Various stages of the Communist Youth League that basically were forced upon us. And those who tried to resist were many times punished for not accepting the communist educational way of life. Sometimes in conversation I would bring up religious topics, and some of my friends would listen while others would simply laugh at me. On the whole, they always tried to teach us that religion is just simply absurdness and silliness, and that it is not worth believing.
I was baptized in the Greek Catholic faith, but I would say that predominantly my grandmother educated me in the faith. My parents were very cautious. My mother was a teacher, and therefore it was very dangerous for her to openly express any kind of religious life because she could have lost her job. But I slowly came to understand myself and began to live in the hope that things would change.
It was on the Feast of the Ascension in April 1987 that an unexpected visitor in Russia, Ukraine, inspired new hope among the faithful.
My sister went out in the morning to go to the toilet, and she saw the apparition. She ran into the house and told us, and we all came out, and we saw it. And then we told the people, and they all started coming the next day.
The visitors apparently swarmed the church despite threats by the government and warnings from some church leaders. And nearly everyone who came and believed apparently saw the reported vision.
I saw on the left window the figure of the Mother of God with the child Jesus, and I saw standing a figure of Mother of God who was walking back and forth on the balcony. Why would she appear here? I can't say, of course, myself, but I believe this is for divine providence to judge why. As for the good that has come from this, well, I'm personally just very happy to be here in Russia, a town that has long been known for its great piety and devotion.
That devotion paid off in December 1989. A historic meeting between Pope John Paul II and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev triggered a new era of religious freedom across the Soviet Union. What began with a handshake eventually led to the law of conscience, which legalized all forms of religion. The Ukrainian Catholic Rite Church began the difficult task of rising from the underground, re-educating the faithful, and reclaiming lost property. Churches, which had been turned into museums and even furniture stores. But the transfer of St. George's Cathedral in Lviv back to the Greek Catholics produced a bitter struggle, and the tears spawned by decades of religious persecution began flowing anew.
We were coming to pray, and the Russian Orthodox threw stones at us. I'm crying because people don't want to support the Greek Catholic Church.
The government must recognize the sin of 1946 as illegal and without any binding power. Following that should come forth the rehabilitation of our church. From this rehabilitation should in fact come out the return of all the properties that belonged to our church before. Our Christian love dictates us to forgive, and we do forgive. But at the same time, they must give back that which was unlawfully taken from us. Some Russian Orthodox have no churches. There should be a peaceful way to solve this. It's a pity that in Ukraine, some people try to solve problems by force.
There is one God. Why should we all fight? Because there's just one God, one faith, and that's the most important thing.
As the Russian Orthodox and Ukrainian Catholics try to mend old wounds, the source of their rivalry and oppression is losing ground. This huge bronze statue of Lenin that once stood in Town Square in Lviv has been taken away. The bronze, ironically, will be turned into church bells. When the workers finally removed the statue of Lenin, they made a startling discovery. The foundation of the monument had been built with the tombstones from desecrated graves of Jews and Christians.
Ми були під таким тяжким ігом наших батьків, наших матерів, наших дідів.
Україна є членом Організації Об'єднаних Націй, Україна має декларацію про свою незалежність, і тому нічого пхатися в Москві в чужі держави.
Я не мав права до церкви піти, мене забороняли.
І якщо Кравчук,
They were expressing their heartfelt emotions about the removal of what for them was a symbol of oppression, for them was a symbol of slavery, of imprisonment, an imprisonment of entire society. A great load in their minds has been lifted just by the removal of this symbol.
As the symbols of evil begin disappearing, so does the fear. There are now public displays of faith. An American archbishop freely distributing holy cards.
Good, here we are. Here's one.
And political activists openly criticizing communism. This 22-year-old distributes a newspaper that warns against alcoholism.
Alcohol was one of the ways that the government used to keep the people in a daze and under a certain narcosis in order to be able to accept it. We want people to be sober so that they can understand exactly what's happening around them, so they can understand what kind of system this really is.
And even the underground empire of the notorious KGB is no longer shielded by fear. In 1941, when the KGB was called back to Moscow, there were still 5,000 to 7,000 prisoners inside this former prison on Lonsky Street. Before leaving, the KGB violently executed each and every one of them.
All I know is my teeth are gone. I was frozen to the point I don't remember much.
Theodosy Storak is one of the few survivors of KGB torture. But even today, more than 40 years later, the shrill cries of victims still haunt him.
If the prisoners were female, they would cut off breasts, and with pregnant women, they would cut open their stomachs and remove the baby. A particular atrocity I remember, they found a Greek Catholic priest crucified on the wall with his stomach ripped open and a dead child placed in his body.
No one knows for sure the total number of victims, but an estimated 19 million were arrested between 1935 and 1940, and nearly a third died at the hands of the KGB. Storak says those who survived relied on faith.
I was with a Russian soldier who had developed a faith because of the suffering of war. He was persecuted by the KGB, and the more they persecuted him, the stronger his faith became. I marvel at his survival. It is a miracle.
They say the people of the Soviet Union are now enjoying political and religious freedoms. But freedom can be bittersweet. The country is starving.
Пробачте, а скільки? It's 100 rubles.
100 rubles. That equals about 20 American dollars. It doesn't sound like much, but the average Russian citizen earns just 150 rubles each month. The signs of economic turmoil are on display inside nearly every store. Empty shelves and long lines are everywhere. Those who are shopping are snatching up not only what they can afford, but often whatever they can find. Most of these people have been standing in this long line for more than an hour. They are waiting to buy a pair of gloves, which has apparently become a rare commodity in this depressed economy.
They are used to stand in queues because it's a part of their life. They are waiting every time in the queues for everything.
But even though standing and waiting has become a way of life here, nerves are wearing thin.
She doesn't like you making films. She won't go to America. The best people live here in the Soviet Union.
Her anger shows the growing frustration produced by hunger and despair. In this grocery, shoppers went home with just a small supply of meat. It is the same dismal picture in Baltic republics like Ukraine.
She's angry because everything is empty here. What you see here is enough items for 1/2 hour. That'll be gone, and then the shelves will be empty, just like in every other store.
So she's worried we're going to... This woman is worried our pictures will be used as government propaganda to show food stores are well stocked, when in reality, people are going hungry.
And she's seen how people have been an old lady going through a garbage dump to find things to eat.
But food is not the only product in demand. These drivers are waiting to buy gas. And these people, the ever-popular Russian vodka. The distributors try to block our cameras. They don't want the publicity since alcoholism is soaring in the Soviet Union. It is here at this outdoor produce market that some of the best deals can be found. Cabbage, potatoes, even watermelon is in full supply. Some of the food that is being sold here today has come from state-run farms known as collective farms. The bulk of the profits will go back into the government, and the rest will be distributed among the farms and the workers. It may not sound fair, but fairness hasn't been a trademark of the communist system, a system that even today is suffocating its people.
І можливо, завдяки
Prices will get worse. The reason? The present system, which cannot continue to function in such a manner.
It was great changes, but now it's very difficult problems without foods. We need some more foods. We need more things, more clothes, more foods. We need something more for living, some more things for living.
The mayor of Lviv, a former communist, offers a radical solution. He says the key to prosperity is independence.
The most important is the independence of Ukraine, only with the full independence of state, only with the breaking of the union.
The democratic movement in Ukraine continues to gain momentum with a powerful people's movement called Ruch. Its headquarters is located in this building here in downtown Kiev. Though the one-room operation is simple, the movement is 300,000 strong and claims the support of 25% of the communist-majority Ukrainian parliament. Ruch, which means movement, is fighting for complete Ukrainian independence, despite Gorbachev's efforts to stop them.
There are two Moscows, the Moscow of Yeltsin and the Moscow of Gorbachev. Before they work out their differences, we'll become independent 3 times over.
In Gorbachev's own backyard, Moscow, the Christian Democratic Party is proving a major political force and a thorn in Gorbachev's side.
Стержнем тоталитарного коммунистического режима,
The main idea of the communist system for 70 years or so was atheism, which fought against religion through destroying morality of the country. So the resurrection of the country and the people can be expected only with the help of religious communities.
It is a feeling that is firmly taking root, even among proclaimed atheists.
I don't believe in God, but I look positively at religion. In another time, when people believed in God, they behaved better. Our spirit is linked to good things.
I've got a Bible, and when I'm reading it, I found that I'm searching for, yeah.
For the people who have lived in this land, their world has been like a living nightmare that dragged on day after day, refusing to end. But despite their misery and oppression, they clung to their cross, and in it found the faith and hope necessary to survive.
The communists are the destroyers of our faith. They want the people not to know about God.
I look to the future with great hope. Our young must support those fighting for Ukrainian independence.
One thought that out of the terrible ruins of our church, nothing would rise up. This certainly is a miracle.